Michael Hamilton on the Loveday deck versus Ariana Loveday on one of the 3 Prism decks at the table. This is going to be a treat.
So, as we sit down, Ariana probably not too happy to be facing against Olivia. You know, historically in Monarch Draft, not a very good matchup for Prism because Levia, obviously, we just spoke about it, has lots of 6 attacks. And how many Levias again were at this draft pod?
I think 2.
So we know Hamilton's going to have a fairly decent Levia deck, and he's going to have multiple 6 attacks. So we're going to see what strategy Ariana tries to employ to get over this hurdle. Because just sending Phantasm attacks, sure, you do have the 1 Dreamweavers to dodge a popper on that 1 turn, but is that going to be enough for you to get over 20 life that the Levia starts with? We might see Ariana opt for a more fatigue style or opt for a more style of, I will make Hamilton die to his own blood debt. But Hamilton, of course, very, very skilled player. We saw him yesterday, very likely able to play around that. So it's going to be very interesting to see the strategies that both these heroes employ.
Turn 1, Ariana on the play there. Went ahead and played out a Yinty Yanty Yellow, so that's going to get +1 to attack and defense if the player controls an aura. However, seems to just be filtering the hand a bit as that bought a, interestingly, 4-power blue Dread Screamer block, which headed to the graveyard for Michael Hamilton there. Now, of course, we're going to begin Michael's turn on that Leviathan deck with the Ravenous Meat Axe. So we're going to pitch that Hungering Slaughter Beast to the graveyard as well. Now, Michael Hamilton, as we saw, these Leviathan decks often wanting to power up that graveyard early before starting that Blood Deck clock.
And that does look like a 6 attack that just got hit off the Ravenous Meat Axe, so that's very, very fortunate for Michael Hamilton. However, that's already 2 Blood Dead cards in his graveyard, which means a lot of his cards, stuff like Hungering Slaughter Beast, stuff like the Unworldly Bellow that we see in the pitch zone, if he wants to play any of them, he's going to instantly start racking up that Blood Dead clock. So we're likely going to see him continue this very patient style of just swinging Meat Axe for a few turns before he's ready to really put the gas on and pitching stuff like Yellow Unworldly Bellow to the bottom to really help him keep the pressure on in the endgame.
Absolutely. A couple cards blocked there for Ariana. She's going to go ahead and pitch a Wartune Herald to the bottom of the deck to just come in with a casual blue Rising Solar Tide. This is going to come in for 3. If it hits Michael Hamilton, going to head into the Soul there for Prism, which is, you know, another source of resources that Prism needs to use to create those Spectral Shields.
And this is such a brilliant play from Ariana. You know, many players will see that hand and think, okay, I pitch my blue and I send my red. But Ariana is doing the reverse. She's saying, you know what, if I send this red, it's just going to get popped. It's just going to help Hamilton put another one of the 6 attacks in his graveyard that he really needs as a resource. So she's saying, I'm going to send this non-Phantasm at you, and you just have to waste a block, and then I'm going to keep my powerful Wartune Herald in my deck later on when I really need to pressure you back so that you can put the pressure on me.
Shadow of Blasmaphet hitting the graveyard off the attack trigger for the Deadwood Rumbler. Now, because it was a 6 that headed to the graveyard, he is able to banish a card from a graveyard. It is, I think, a mandatory trigger, so he's going to go ahead and grab that Enigma Chimera that Ariana blocked with, not wanting to start that Blood Deck clock any earlier than he has to. This Deadwood Rumbler going to buy 2 cards now. Looks like a couple of 2 blocks, perhaps, so 2 damage coming through. Ariana going down to 18 on the turn.
Definitely Hamilton, definitely very, very happy with that, getting 2 damage through and just sending, you know, a 6 attack. Now, this sort of play pattern we do see a lot in Monarch Draft where, you know, players block with 2 cards, send a 6 attack, block with 2 cards, send a 6 attack. However, this is not a winning strategy. At some point, one player needs to go over the top or make the other player go over the top and then punish them for it, which we might see Ariana do later in the game, telling Hamilton, you know what, you're trying to go over the top, I'm just going to block you out, make you die to your own blood debt. That is a possible play pattern that she has. Hamilton needs to figure out how to get over that. Now, on the flip side, though, Ariana does not have a weapon. We talked about the soul. She really needs that soul to start swinging Spectral Shields with the Iris of Reality. So the fatigue strategy, you know, it's not really a slam dunk. Even once Hamilton starts racking up the blood debt, it's not necessarily a winning strategy because she does not have a weapon. And this is such an amazing play. In the previous turn, we saw her pitch the red war to not send a Phantasm attack. This turn, she's saying, fine, I'll send a Phantasm attack because I've got this Blinding Beam ready to blow you out when you try and pop this.
Absolutely, really amazing there. The Blinding Beam going to lower the attack of the Boneyard Marauder there, so the Phantasm no longer triggering, able to get 5 damage across on that massive Enigma Chimera. She's got 2 in the deck, but now both of them, from what I can see there, probably in the graveyard and in the Banish Zone, if that is a red one that is in the Banish Zone there. We've got now a 6 attack coming out. This is probably a Dreadwood Screamer, if it's got the go again.
Yes, it is the Dread Screamer, and it looks like Hamilton has exactly 2 misses in the graveyard, which means he's guaranteed to hit on this. So he's saying, you know what, at this point, I'm going to start going off. I only have 2 misses in the graveyard. I'm guaranteed to hit this, and I have enough of the graveyard right now, especially after his Dread Screamer goes to the graveyard there, that I think I can keep this pressure on for the rest of the game. Now, however, we are very, very far away from second cycle, which means he does not really know the texture of the hands he's going to get. So this tells me that he's very, very confident in his deck composition, and as one of 2 Levias, he's saying, you know what, I trust my deck, and if I keep getting blown out by blinding beams, I'm going to lose. I'm not going to have the life total later to put the pressure on, so I'm just going to start going off now, and I think my deck will get me there.
Absolutely. Sometimes players priced into certain strategies once their opponents present them with the problem. That blinding beam perhaps putting Michael Hamilton in the position to start to turn on the gas. 3 damage coming across after the Herald of Tenacity block. Time for a smash with Big Tree to follow it up. You talk about big numbers, talk about going over 6 attacks. We've got a 6 into a 7 here. Going to put 2 more hits into the graveyard. It looks like another couple of blocks being thrown down for Ariana, one of those red Zealous Beltings, the only one in her deck, which is a big, powerful go-again attack in these Prism decks. Couple damage coming across. Ariana heading on down to 12, looking like she might just arsenal.
And Smash a Big Tree, very, very good chain ended there for Michael Hamilton compared to something like Endless Maw. Even though Endless Maw comes in for 2 more damage, Smash a Big Tree does not consume your graveyard. It's a very, very critical resource that he needs, especially if he wants to get value from his hooves later on, because, you know, in a draft, you're not expected to get as many Dread Screamers as, you know, you would like. So hooves is another way for you to sort of make your own Dread Screamer at home. But you critically need a bunch of 6 attacks or more in your graveyard, and that Smash a Big Tree is one of those cards that fills it up with a higher than 6 power attack, but doesn't consume it, whereas something like Boneyard Marauder or Endless Maw would consume it.
Absolutely. Michael just going ahead and counting the deck there, perhaps checking out when he's going to head down to that pitch stack, or just making sure he's got enough cards to work with. He's got a full 4 cards. Ariana just arsenaling on her turn, so we can see that he's kind of preparing to mount an offense of his own. Again, that blood debt clock being at 2, it's something he's going to have to navigate for the rest of the game. He does, checking out the equipment suite over there, have access to the Ebon Fold, which is going to be a way that he's going to be able to, if he so chooses or needs, to banish a card at will from the hand. If it's a shadow card, he gets to draw a card, but more importantly, if it's a 6 attack, he will turn off blood debt on a turn that he might otherwise not be able to.
Definitely, and that's another very easy way for him to activate the hooves as well. And I just really want to go back to how the tempo of the game has changed. We saw at the beginning Hamilton, you know, very conservative. I'm just going to send a Meat Axe at you, and then Ariana countering with that massive Phantasm attack with a blinding beam blowout, telling Hamilton, okay, you need to put on the gas. And then it pivoted, and now Ariana is the one who's playing conservative, saying, I'm going to block you out. You've already started your blood debt clock, and now I'm going to block you out, put you on the side that needs to really go over my defenses.
Absolutely. Michael Hamilton really taking a think here. 15 life to Ariana's 12. This is round 8, the first round of this draft pod here on day 2 of the National Championships. Again, this is where the intensity begins to ratchet up. Michael Hamilton really taking his time to think through this turn. He's going to look like he's getting ready to throw out the attack. It's going to go ahead and be an Unworldly Bellow, so we're looking to pump up our next Brute attack on the turn. But first, got to banish 3.
Yep, and very critically, this will put a miss in the graveyard, but we talked about Michael Hamilton's graveyard looking very, very healthy already. So right now there's 5 cards in the graveyard, but after his Unworldly Resolve, it's going to go in the graveyard and critically be that extra 3rd card that you need for a lot of Michael Hamilton's cards, like Boneyard Marauder and Endless Maw. So there you go. He puts it in the graveyard, and now we might see him consume it. No, he does not. That is Consuming Aftermath.
Consuming Aftermath here, so we're going to go ahead and potentially banish. So you can potentially banish a card from your hand, and if it is a shadow card, you can give it Dominate. So this is just going to be pumped up from the Unworldly Bellow, but because we're not banishing a shadow card from our hand there, it's just going to be 7 damage, not going to have that Dominate clause online.
Yes, and now critically Hamilton has 3 misses in that graveyard. There's a Blue Dread Screamer, there's Unworldly Bellow, and once it's consuming goes in the graveyard. That's a 4 attack. At base. It's being pumped by the Unworldly Bellow right now. It's at 7 on the chain, but in the graveyard it is not more than 6. So that's 3 misses in the graveyard when he has already started his Blood Debt clock. So, you know, this could be looking a little risky for him. I'm curious to see whether Ariana chooses to even send an attack at Michael Hamilton, because if she does, he has the option to fill his graveyard up with more 6 attacks, which will make his banishes from the graveyard more consistent. So let's see what she is sending a Herald here. So if he has a popper, he will get to have that second 6 attack in the graveyard. But of course, you have to be worried about a Blinding Beam. We've seen Ariana do this before. The last time she did this, she had a Blinding Beam very conveniently parked in Arsenal. Now, of course, Hamilton can get around that by using a generic popper, not a shadow one. Remember, Blinding Beam only costs 1 less if it's targeting a shadow card. Ariana currently doesn't have any floating. So let's see if he has some of those generic poppers like pound for a pound.
Yeah, taking a look at the hand there, it's hard to see as he's, once again, like these top players do, often flicking through those cards with a fearsome ferocity. But this Herald of Protection coming in for 6. If it hits, not only going to go to the soul, but create that Spectral Shield that acts as the weapon for these Prism decks to start getting pretty efficient.
I think I see a Stony Wootenhog, but I don't believe that's a red. So Hamilton, I think, really trying to guess whether Ariana has those Blinding Beams. Now, do we know how many Blinding Beams she drafted in her deck?
She has at least 2, and I think only 2. She definitely has a couple of blue ones. I'm not sure if she was able to grab a red. We've seen the 1 blue get used, and I think just the 2 blue Blinding Beams.
Okay, so there is still the possibility of a second one. Now, we have this inside information. Hamilton, however, doesn't know how many Blinding Beams Ariana has drafted. Now, Michael Fung, for example, I managed to watch his draft. He has 3 Blinding Beams in his deck. So you can really tell these Prism players are kind of worried about the potential Brute matchup, and they're saying they're preparing the deck with Blinding Beams. There we go, Ariana with another Blinding Beam just perfectly set up for this. Now, I absolutely love the way she's playing this. She's not sending Phantasm attacks unless she has this prepared. And this is quite a big blowout for Hamilton. As we talk about, this Ghost of Soul makes the shield critically, which is a weapon that she has to continue enacting this fatigue strategy that looks like she's trying to go for.
Yeah, absolutely. Once again, getting that damage across. And as we look at the equipment suite, she does have the Dreamweavers. It's not a Blinding Beam, but it is a way to get a huge attack over the defenses of a Phantasm Popper. We're going to come in with another Consuming Aftermath. This time, however, banishing a 6, turning off the Blood Debt, and critically turning on the Dominate on the card. So this is 6 damage. 3 of it most likely going to have to come across. That Spectral Shield, however, probably going to shore up one of those points of damage.
Definitely. Ariana not happy about this. I think she was definitely she would have preferred if she could just block out of the hand, keep 1 blue and send the shield and preserve that shield. But it looks like she's going to be forced to give it up. Even that Ironhide Helm here not going to be enough to cover up this Dominate.
Absolutely.
And going back to the Dreamweavers, so we spoke about how Ariana might want to try and let Hamilton die to his own blood. There's 2 ways you can do this. On one hand, you can potentially let him die to variance, so you draw a hand that you can't turn off Blood Debt. That's, not a very consistent strategy, of course, but the other way is when you activate the Dreamweavers and put your opponent in a position where they are forced to block, and if Hamilton doesn't have cards in hand, he can't turn off Blood Debt, and then that's another way he could die to his own Blood Debt.
That's absolutely true, and Ariana there shoring up to take the 5, heading on down to 7 here, so she's clearly got some things she wants to work with. She's going to go ahead and pitch a Herald of Judgment to, here's a red Phantasmify that I knew she drafted, so this is coming in with that Dreamweavers we've been talking about, going to come in with a big old Herald of Rebirth, so not only does this not have Phantasm, if it hits, we're going to put another card with Phantasm on the top of our deck. This Herald of Rebirth is massive.
And it's also going to go to Soul. Yet another potential Spectral Shield later down the line. That's 11 without Phantasm. Absolutely massive.
12!
12! Absolutely massive attack.
So let's see, Hamilton, you talked about trying to take cards out of the hand here. No Phantasm going to be able to just allow for a quick and easy 1-card block. You take enough cards out of the hand. We pointed out the Ebb and Fold as a potential get-out-of-jail-free card, but this looks like a time that we might see a lot of damage coming across. Looking like we're shoring up a total of 4 blocks so far.
Yep. So hooves being put on the chain here. Now this could be Michael Hamilton saying, I plan to use this on my next turn. You may not have the extra Dread Screamers that we were talking about. And he's really feeling like with him this low and Ariana at 7, he really needs to put on the pressure right now.
Yeah, and Ariana critically pitching that Merciful Retribution to the bottom of the deck. A no block. Let's get that out of here because we've got big attacks coming at us. Michael Hamilton taking a full 8, heading down to 4 life. Looking at that Blood Debt, that's up to 6. At any point that Michael Hamilton is not able to turn that off, that's going to be the end of the game here. So just going ahead and checking out the chain, making sure we're all... Oh, it's probably the hit trigger of the Herald of Rebirth.
Yeah, both hit triggers.
Yeah.
The Phantasm attack going on top of the deck from the graveyard and the Herald of Rebirth going to Soul. We talked about how critical the Soul is. The Phantasm attack going on top of the deck likely is going to be end up using as a block, but the extra Soul Ariana will definitely miss that if this ends up being a miss trigger. It looks like we might be calling a judge.
Yeah.
It looks like we might have a judge call. Players are going to take a minute to to start this out. But this has been such a riveting game so far. Ariana really showing us how a Prism can beat this Loveday matchup, which is honestly a very, very difficult matchup for Prism to get over.
Yeah, a couple of blinding beams at critical times, getting them in the arsenal when you need, and then finding that Dreamweaver. There was another Dreamweaver that was rocking around the pod, made it almost all the way back to Ariana after she passed it, but Michael Fung in the seat right to her right was able to snag it before it completed that critical wheel. But an important card here, that red Phantasmify, I've been waiting to see if that was going to pop up at any point in concert with the Dreamweavers. We did see it there, but if that card isn't able to go to Soul because the mistrigger is enforced, then that is a critical loss of potentially a Spectral Shield. That's, again, not only 1 point of life, but 4 points of damage if you're able to keep it around.
It is the consistent way Ariana has to put pressure, which is very critically not a Phantasm attack. That Spectral Shield does not have Phantasm. It's not like Dromai's Dragons. That is straight up a weapon.
Yeah, and with Michael Hamilton taking all of that damage to go 2-4, all of a sudden any Spectral Shield that you are able to stick does become lethal attacks that you have to respect. And again, that blood debt count was all the way up to 6. If you're not able to turn that off at any point in the game as the Leviathan player here, you just die. It doesn't matter if you're the world champ or not, you just lose to blood debt.
Exactly. No Leviathan redeemed in this format, unfortunately. He will. There's no way for him to turn off blood debt no matter how high he racks it up.
Yeah, so waiting to see how the judge takes care and shores up the situation. Looking ahead, we have Michael Fung versus Daniel Johnson on Prism and Prism. This is going to be a mirror match for our backup, so we're looking ahead to that once this match does complete. But again, Michael Hamilton heading to 4 after that attack. It's going like we've seen the 2 blinding beams, we've seen the Phantasmify on the Dreamweaver's turn. How else is Ariana going to be able to find damage beyond those Phantasm attacks without creating something like a Spectral Shield?
So I think it is going to be a Spectral Shield. Now, we know she only has 2 blinding beams, and we've already seen the Dreamweavers be popped, so we know that she has no other way in her deck to get around Phantasm. So I think it's very likely going to be a Spectral Shield, but you brought up a very critical point. He's at 4, and he just used the hooves as a blocking piece, which means every time a Spectral Shield comes in as an attack with that Iris of Reality, it's going to take at minimum 1 card from Michael Hamilton. Eventually, once it goes down to 1, if that happens, then it's going to take 2 cards from him, and that's a that's a losing statement right there.
Yeah. Imagine she just has a 3rd red blinding beam. That's the thing that I'm trying to remember, because I've written down every card. I was like, did she grab a red one? I thought she might have grabbed a red one, but I don't see it in my notes. If it comes out, it'll be the Leroy Jenkins. Just like, oh my god!
That would be shocking, because I have Michael Fung's list with me, and he has 3 blinding beams in his list. So that would be a lot of blinding beams to go around. And there is yet another Prism player at the table. We don't know how many blinding beams they have.
And we've seen how critical they can be in this matchup. Looks like we are going to go ahead and head back to the game momentarily and check out the resolution of the effect here. Let's take a look, because I do believe that the Herald of Rebirth is going to head to Soul, because it might not be an optional trigger. It might just be something that the game checks and happens no matter what.
Yeah, and so it looks like we're on Hamilton's turn here after he blocked with the 1 card and the hooves. Starting out with an Unworldly Bellow. No, this is very good, because we talked about how his graveyard is slightly messy. He has 3 misses, potentially more at this point, but Unworldly Bellow does not care that you banish a 6 attack or more. So this is a very good way for him to clear up some of those misses, and we see that happen. The Blue Dread Screamer immediately gone. Now that's 1 miss gone, which means I believe he only has 2 misses left, which means the next thing he plays, if it banishes 3 cards, it's guaranteed to hit.
Yeah, so the Rebirth there heading to Soul, because clearly the trigger is not something you can go ahead. It's not really something to miss. The game just checks and puts it on in there. So now after the Unworldly Bellow, we're going to pump up the Boneyard Marauder. So we're going to go ahead and just keep a couple cards in the graveyard, banish 3 more. So this is going to be coming in for a lot of damage. Ariana's only got 4 cards to work with here. This is going to be coming in for probably 10.
So Boneyard Marauder is another one of those cards that doesn't care that you banish a 6 attack or more. So this is coming in for 6 regardless, and is getting the buff from the Unworldly Bellow. But look at the state of that graveyard now. That's a yellow Void Wraith, I believe, and the Unworldly Bellow. That is 2 misses. Now this Boneyard Marauder is going to go in there and be a 6 attack in there. So if he starts with another attack that banishes 3 and cares about banishing a 6, he's guaranteed to hit. But if he starts with something like Unworldly Bellow, he's going to hit, but then he won't have any graveyard left to do another power card like Boneyard Marauder Endless Maw.
Yeah, so Ariana donating 4 cards to the cause there. A couple Enigma Chimeras, another blue Phantasmify. Heading to the graveyard, she just shores up a full 12 block, blocking out the 10. And now, again, Michael Hamilton has a lot of cards in that Blood Debt zone. He's got 3 cards in the graveyard there, does critically have a hit. So if he needs to banish 3 on this turn, he will banish a 6 and turn off the Blood Debt. That Ebb and Fold going to be critical on a turn that he can't find something otherwise. Michael's going to go ahead and check the Prism deck here, seeing how many cards are left. There aren't many in there, so we're looking at a potential fatigue situation either way here, Pankaj.
Yes, and I believe, yes, he did have a Dread Screamer in his hand. Now, that is not the red, so, but this is guaranteed to hit, but after this, he can close the chain and put a Dread Screamer in the graveyard to have the critical resource that he needs, but this will just be the 1 card in the graveyard, so he needs some other way to fill it up. And with Ariana playing the way that she is, putting a whole hand down to block, she is not giving Hamilton the opportunity to block with cards in hand to fill up that graveyard. So this is going to be this could be tricky for Michael Hamilton.
Could be tricky. Ariana not working with many cards left in the deck there herself, so how is she going to be able to find a way to stay alive and stay in with enough cards in deck to make use out of those Spectral Shields? We're going to now go ahead and shore up a block with the Ironhide Helm. Going to block that out entirely, but now it's time for a big old Graveling Growl red. So this one only cares if you have banished on the turn, banished that 6. So this one's going to be coming in 4-7 here. Got another big old point of damage coming across. We're going to make a Spectral Shield with the remaining 2 floating, and then come in with another 3 block, blocking 4, going to take 3 here on the turn. Going down to 4 is Ariana Loveday on the Prism, and I think that might be the Parable of Humility that she drafted in her hand. That is a no block, so safely going to head to the arsenal here. Not going to spell the end of her day, or the end of this round, but it is going to head to the arsenal. Going to be hard to deploy for those 4 resources cost, but it's time now to most likely head to the arsenal, and then time to see how Michael Hamilton can try to keep himself alive in this game.
And it's very likely going to stay in arsenal because of the way that she's playing. Now, we spoke about how many tools she has to get around Michael Hamilton's poppers. Parable of Humility is actually one of them. You make the attacks -1 when they're on the chain blocking, and it just goes under 5, and it's not popping your attack anymore. However, with her at 4, she will need to keep a full grip for that. Unlikely to happen. Now, Michael Hamilton's graveyard, that Graveling Growl was a very, very solid chain ender for him because it didn't consume the graveyard, and it puts a critical hit in there. Now, we spoke about how we could potentially get the 3rd card in there, the Ebb and Fold. Once you pop it, it does go into a graveyard, and that'll be the 3rd thing he can bench. Oh,
the Ebb and Fold will head to the graveyard.
Yeah, the Ebb and Fold itself goes to the graveyard.
Yes.
The card, that gets benched. Ebb and Fold goes to the graveyard, and that can be the critical 3rd piece that you need.
Because some of these cards in Leviathan, many of them, in fact, do require you to banish 3. So having to find another way to put a card into the graveyard here might be how Michael Hamilton needs to turn on the rest of the turn. Seeing a Belittle in the hand here, that's another way to put an attack on the combat chain, close the combat chain after that go again attack. There's your 3rd card as well.
Looks like that's being pitched, and he is doing the Ebb and Fold play. So yes, it's going to get destroyed. It's going to get sent to the graveyard. He's going to be able to banish a card from his hand and draw a card if he banishes a shadow card.
So this is massive here, right? Because not only are we going to be putting a card into the banish zone here, which does look like it's an Unworldly Bellow, which is currently not a hit. So Leviah still online for the turn, but as soon as we banish 3 here, that Graveling Growl gonna head to the banish zone and turn off the Blood Debt on Leviah. But this Ebb and Fold, like you said, I think that's a really critical point, turning on the 3 cards in the graveyard, so this Dread Screamer is rip raring to go.
Yep, that was the exact 3rd card he needed. It looks like he might also be popping the hooves. He wants 2 action points after his Dread Screamer resolves. Going to get go again, give him 1 action point back. Popping the hooves as well, 2 action points. So likely going to be an attack plus the meat axe.
Now, if you're able to get enough damage threatened, that meat axe, if you know your deck at this point, I don't know how far along we are in the game, but if you know the top card of your deck is a 6, perhaps you're going to be able to utilize the meat axe for lethal, but we've just got a Void Wraith coming out of the banish zone. That is one of those cards that we saw in the graveyard earlier. That's just a card that can be played from banish zone.
Yeah, just very sneaky. It was in the banish zone the whole time. We didn't even notice. I thought it was going to be the Graveling Growl that I believe he has in his hand, which actually looks like it's going to be how he ends the chain over here instead of the axe. And that is a lot of damage for Ariana to deal with. Now, I don't know what color that Graveling Growl is, but this could very well be lethal.
Oh, it looks like it might be a yellow, so it is a 6. That's a 2 block in hand. 4 damage coming across, and Ariana Loveday unable to find life at the end of the game there. Michael Hamilton really mastered